You're listening to the Athlete One Podcast, improving athletes and coaches, one interview at a time. This episode of the Athlete One Podcast is powered by the Netting Professionals, improving programs one facility at a time. Coaches, it's time to take your facility to the next level. Will Miner and his team at the Netting Professionals specialize in design, fabrication, and installation of custom netting for baseball and softball. This includes backstops, batting cages, BP turtles, BP screens, and ball carts. They also design and install digital graphic wall padding, windscreen, turf protector, dugout benches, and cubbies. They also work with football, soccer, lacrosse, and golf courses. The Netting Professionals continue to provide quality products and services to recreational, high school, college, and professional fields and facilities throughout our country. Contact them today at 844-620-2707. That's 844-620-2707. Or visit them online at www.nettingpros.com. Or you can check them out at Netting Pros on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn for all their latest products and projects. You're locked into the Athlete One Podcast. Today, I sit down with a high school Hall of Fame baseball coach and a future Hall of Famer. With high school baseball starting in mid-February, we discuss battling the elements in Northeast Ohio, having a veteran Hall of Fame coach as an assistant, what to do when a player is struggling, communication, and navigating the player-parent-coach triangle. And did I mention they are father and son? These topics and so much more with Bill and Frank Gamble of Massillon Jackson Baseball next on the Athlete One Podcast.
Welcome to the Athlete One Podcast. Veteran high school baseball coach Ken Carpenter takes you into life's classroom as experienced through sports. Go behind the scenes with athletes and coaches as they share great stories, life lessons, and ways to impact others.
Well, we're about a month out from the start of high school baseball season here in Ohio, and I imagine the two of you are probably getting pretty excited to get started.
Yeah, I think kind of getting like a lot of the high school coaches right now, we're just kind of getting that. You can see it on the horizon, and everybody's got that baseball cabin fever ready to go. So, especially in the north here, I mean, we just got to operate within our buoys, so to speak. But we've been able to get to a couple. We just got back from Nashville on the ABCA clinic down there, and looking forward to a state clinic here pretty soon, and should kind of get just kind of get those juices flowing.
Well, I can't start the show without asking, how special is it to get an opportunity to coach with each other?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's really special. I've been blessed because both my boys are head coaches. Our youngest son is the head coach at Sandy Valley High School football.
Okay.
And then, of course, Bill, being the head coach at Jackson, has won 2 state titles. And, Bill coached for me when I was at Perry High School for 9 years. And it's really fun to be with both of them. I couldn't ask for a better way to wind down my career than coach with both my boys.
Yes. And Bill, how does it feel to have somebody that's in your dugout that's got 611 wins under their belt?
Man, every coach loves to have that wily veteran, the guy that's been through it, and he's pretty much been through everything. So that's been good. It was unique for me in my aspect because not many people get the opportunity. Number one, if you back up to where kind of this all started at Perry High School, I got the unique opportunity to play for my father, where I played there, and then went on to college, came back after college, and decided to get into education teaching, and was able to coach for him as his assistant. So we did that for a while. We had really good rhythm, and then this opportunity came open, which is in our conference in our league. So I took his last year as the head coach at Perry High School, Massillon Perry, I took over at Jackson High School over here. And so we actually played against each other. We were actually the head coaches going against each other.
Okay.
And now to come full circle, to have him coaching alongside me. Not many people can say they've got that experience.
Okay, that's I know that I've had a chance to be both an assistant coach and a head coach, and one, I can tell that it's much easier being the assistant coach, and the head coach has a lot of responsibilities, and to have someone like your dad being able to right there by your side, he can kind of help you with things. But you've also had an opportunity to be an assistant coach, so you kind of know what it's like.
Ken, I think the difference between a head coach and assistant coaches sleep better at night.
Yeah, without a doubt.
That's probably because your head coach, you're laying in bed thinking about all the things that you got going on the next day, practice is going to be, and so forth. But I know exactly how he feels.
And that's a unique situation because, our last interaction was head coach with head coach. So, he retires from high school, goes on to coach at Furman University and then College of Worcester. So then he's really, I didn't know. We kind of started talking about this maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. Like, hey, do you think this is going to work? Do you need a role? Is there a role filled? So we're kind of having those conversation pieces. But man, what an asset for our program to be able to pick up somebody with that type of knowledge and still have the energy, the juice, man. That's the difference. Like, I see there's so many times our coaches are getting, he's kind of leading us with the juice and energy, man. So it's super impressive after a couple of decades. We'll just leave it at that. A couple of decades of coaching.
Yes. That's a good way to leave it.
Well, Bill, spring in Ohio is not ideal for baseball. And you guys being up there in that Canton area, between the rain and the cold temperatures, I know in central Ohio how difficult it can be. And it's got to be even worse being up there in that snow belt. How do you keep your team focused when once that season gets started and you're hit with the rain, and then all of a sudden it's cold, and then you find yourself playing six games in 1 week?
That's a good question. We have to battle that every year if you're above that Mason-Dixon line. I think the all ball coach here said that felt like Columbus or Cincinnati area is like 2 weeks ahead of us, in the weather wise too. So even in that aspect of the beginning of the spring, you feel like you're going to get there. But then I think every season we're going through that stretch where you're going to get that rain for 3, 4, 5 days, or that snow, or that, for us, it's really just concentrating on the things we can control. We spend a lot of time on those aspects and a lot of the mental game. So we really don't worry about things we can't control. That's one of them that's really on our list. We literally sit down at the beginning of the year, go over a can't control list. And we really just concentrate on things we can't control. So that's our training, that's our sleep, that's hydration, that's making sure we get proper, make sure we're in the weight room. We got our rehab stuff going on, taking care of our bodies. Those are things we can control. We can't control that storm that hits us. We are an hour south of Lake Erie, but we still catch a little bit of that. There's just things we can't control. So we try not to spend too much time worrying about it.
Yes, definitely. I wanted to ask Frank, you're a Hall of Fame coach. You got over 600 wins throughout your career. What are some of the changes or even challenges that you've seen over that period of time with not only the coaches, but the players? And the players, I'm sorry.
Well, right. I think one of the things back when I started to coach, that the caliber of coaching now, when I started, is much, much better. We have some excellent coaches up here in the Federal League and in Northeast Ohio, as you do in Central Ohio and all throughout the state. And I've been affiliated with the Ohio Baseball Coach Association and been on the board for almost 28 years now. And I can just see the big change. It's just baseball is so much more important now, and it's so much bigger than it was back 25 or 30 years ago.
I mean, just the number of coaches, I think, that attend the national coaches conventions and the state coaches convention is just crazy to see the numbers that pour in there. I believe there was nearly 8,000 coaches at the national convention. And we probably here in Ohio get 1,500, I would think.
But we're shooting for 1,400 this year. And that's quite a nice number. We're the second biggest in the country as far as high school. Texas is number one. We're number two. They just have more folks. So.
Yeah, there you go. Well, my last guest I had on was Chris Fugate, the head coach at Hilliard Darby, and that episode went out. and he's a big believer in small ball. What style of baseball can you expect to see from a Coach Gamble coach team?
It's a really good question. I think it centers around execution, you know what I mean, and trying to get our players to be the best version of them. I think he has always been known for, and myself, if you're talking to coaches, you're going to talk about pressure baseball. And yes, that incorporates small ball, that incorporates running the bases correctly. We want to create pressure, chaos. We can't just stand player for player and put a better lineup every week than everybody else. And if you want to make deep tournament runs, you got to be able to execute. So for us, we really train for those moments when we're going against and we're competing against some of the best teams in the state and nation, of course. You know, even in around Northeast Ohio, Central, and the 513 down Cincinnati. But really, it's about execution for us. So our style is about pressure baseball, creating pressure, creating chaos. And yes, it incorporates every version of a bunt, because I think the year we won the state title, we hit 3 home runs in 17. You know, it's tough. It's just tough to hit home runs, because until the weather changes, and what we kind of explain that with our players too, is if you want to make a deep tournament run, the way it works, you gotta hit the ball in minor league parks. And hit ball in minor league parks, they got deep outfields. And yeah, you can run into one, and you sure can, but can we execute? Can we spin a ball in the gap? You know, can we put pressure on that catcher? Can we get our hitters a little more fastballs, you know, by putting pressure? So for us, we're really trying to create pressure, you know, and I think that's kind of been our style, building off his. And, you know, I put as I call him the OG, the original Gamble, but we put the OG in charge of bunting and small ball, and he just brings the juice there again, and just the details involved in it. But, you know, in our staff, we kind of break it up like a football staff, if that makes sense. We have, you know, everybody's got their role, and everybody's really isolated, working under an offensive plan, offensive umbrella, and then, you know, offensive coordinator and under the head coach, that type of thing. So we kind of base that idea, but we really want to go out and try to create the most growth and develop our players so they're the best version of them. But yes, I think for us, it's creating pressure and chaos.
Now, good example of that too, Ken, was I spoke at a clinic a few years ago, and I used Bill's example in 2014 when he won the state title. They hit 2 home runs and butted 98 times. And that's what Bill just said, is that's what we try to do, is put pressure on that defense we're playing. And we want to go gun-ho on offense. And that's basically how you win ball games.
But in that, too, in 2014, we were underdogs about 3 of the 4 games going down the stretch, too. Yeah. So when you're out there facing 91, 93, you got to figure out how to scratch a couple across. And if my lineup's just better than your lineup, I get out of the way, sit down, and let the donkeys do what they do and run into it and knock the fence down. But, you know, you get into those situations where you're facing just elite arms in Ohio. Ohio just seems to pump out some big-time arms across the country when you start looking at the college and pro level. And you got to beat those arms in a sprint 7-inning game, and you got to find a way to get a run or 2 across. And sometimes you got to be able to put that ball in play and keep those pressure on that defense.
Now, you mentioned that you had 98 bunts that season. I would imagine if you executed that, getting those bunts down, you're probably pretty good defensively when it comes to defending the bunt also.
I think you have to be in this day and age. You got to be able to play defense to get off the field. For us, I think we have a little bit of an advantage here. Like a lot of teams, we've invested a lot in our facilities. So having a turf, we've had a turf infield since 14. We've built an indoor training facility, about 10,000 square foot. So we get touches, you know what I'm saying? We can get on the field. And I think that does equate to reps, to being a better defensive team. But I mean, you know, as well as everybody, pitching we say this is just pitching and defense goes hand in hand. You can't have one without the other if you want to make those deep tourney runs. So for us, we really, really stress for us just really winning the routine play. If we can win those routine plays on defense and get off the field, it just gives us a better chance, you know, in that 7-inning sprint.
How do you handle the player who's struggling? He's a starter. He's been playing the first half of the season. He's struggling. And at what point do you say, all right, maybe this is when we need to make a change? Because in high school baseball, you know, you get a 27, 28 games in usually, then the tournament starts. it's tough because it's not like a minor league or a major league or even a college schedule. How do you handle that at the high school level?
That's a tough one. I mean, there's no magic formula for that. This guy's been through how many games? I've been through a couple myself. Gosh, I think you got to take it on a player-by-player basis. You know what I'm saying? You got to keep – and the biggest thing that we try and do, and we really have trying to do even a better job every year, and this year is having those open lines of communication. Having their individual coaches have those meetings with them, because it really comes down to, probably playing time and the lack of execution and putting more pressure on themselves. That's probably answers a lot of the, and in that process, my job, at the end of the day, my job is to put the best product on the field that gives us the best chance, to win in that day. So you're really kind of battling those two variables in there. So we try to keep as much open lines of communication and have those weekly assessments, talks, those type of things with our players. And again, they don't always go well. And that you've been in coaching long enough that they don't really go well, but not always. But keeping those open lines of communication for us, understanding one thing we use really in our program, and I kind of brought it in 15, and he's been along for the ride even though he wasn't on staff on a lot of those, in the sense he was in the dugout when we were making some deep tournament runs. But we talk a lot in this program of for versus with. And it doesn't sound like a really big deal, but in our program, it's a really big deal. In our program, we talk about we play for. Like you've all heard this in like summer ball. I play with this kid was so good, and this guy's a dude. I'm with. I play with this summer team, or I'm with this showcase. Our guys in our program, we really preach, who do I play for? And I play for the guy beside me, and I'm playing for the program, and I'm playing for this community. And for us, it's a really minor thing if you really look at it, but in our program, it's a big thing. Understanding who you play for, because I tell our pitchers this: when I hand you the ball, I'm not handing the ball to 12 other guys. So you're pitching for those guys. If you're the catcher behind the plate, you're getting the plate, you're getting control of the team, and the other guys aren't. So there's some responsibility there. And then, but along those lines with that for versus with, we still, at the end of the day, to go back to your question, it's about communication for us, I think, is the best way we handle it, as best we can with high school kids.
The great thing about doing a podcast is I've talked to coaches all over the country and athletes, and I always walk away with something, and right there, for and with. I mean, I'm writing that down, and that's something that I love that, because that really applies to the town you're playing for and the high school you're playing for. But when it comes to communication, to a young coach that might be listening to the podcast here, when you have that situation where I call it like the triangle between the coach, the player, and the parent, how do you have that tough conversation where maybe a parent might want to come in and talk to you? Is that something that you have a policy on? And how do you guys, Frank, how did you do it when you were going through, and is it any different with how you're doing it now, Bill?
I think it's pretty much the same. Each player you have has a different button that you push. Some kids you have to TLC and bring them around that way if they're in a slump or what have you. Other kids just need their excuse the French, butt run out. And so each kid is different. And we really go through the players' communication, like Coach said. Each of us, one coach might be closer to somebody else than the head coach may be. Sometimes you use assistants. So I think that's a big thing right there. But the communication with the parent, that would come after. That'd be the last stand right there with the parent to coming in. And that we don't do that right after a ball game or anything else. They'd make an appointment to come in if they have to say. But be honest with the parent, just like you're honest with the kid. The player knows where he stands, and then if you do that, you're going to have less parents come in.
Yeah, and I think the thing that's really transitioned is we're really trying to teach in our program, and where my vision is going is some accountability in teaching these young men how to be a man. And in that, they have to sit down and have an adult conversation and listen, and maybe not like the information they're getting, but listen. I've really steered away from the playing time conversations with the parents in season, to be honest with you, because I tell them, you're 17, 18, 16-year-old men that have to make, adult decisions, in school, outside of school. We need to talk about that. And if it has to elevate beyond that, and they do sometimes, the problem is like, where does it go from there? I mean, how long of an open door, and where's the accountability of the young man taking some ownership and learning? Because is dad or mom going to be there when he doesn't like the 89% he got in the college class? What's he going to do when we pass this young man off to the new staff at Ohio State or at Mount Union, University of Mount Union? Is mom, dad going to call the coach to talk about playing time? So we're trying to teach them a little bit of this ownership, and it's a give and take. You know what I'm saying? Because there's teachable moments, and at the same time, they're going to fail because they're 15, 16, 17, 18. So we're really trying to harness the young man to start taking those ownership and accountability steps, almost like you'd see in the classroom. That's where we want to get to. It doesn't always work, but holistically, that's where we're trying to go, because the conversation about playing time, to be 100% honest, is really between the player and the coaching staff and how they fit into it. Now, does those conversations go to, involve parents? They do it randomly, but we try to keep them out, mainly because, like I said, we're really working on the holistic approach of having them have a voice for themselves, and some accountability in there.
With that, how, with your athletic department and your principal and the administration, do you have the full support of those staff members behind you when it comes to situations like that? Because a lot of times, like we've seen down here in Central Ohio, and you see it, around the country, sometimes parents like to make that jump and go to someone higher up. Do you have that support, I guess, from your athletic department and your administration?
Well, let's start with the idea of do parents jump above me and go to the athletic all the time? Let's not, like it happens, I think, at every school.
Yes.
So let's not act like,
Totally.
So do I get a disgruntled parent that calls the athletic director? Absolutely. Do I get, are they best friends with our superintendent, or, I feel like they can vent there? I'm sure they do. I can speak for the last, 12 years. Terry Peterson and Danny Michael have been our athletic director. Both have done a really good job of kind of having our coaches' backs. And now our head principal has moved over to athletic director, Jeff Crocker, who's been a former coach. So, we're never going to say always or never, but, being that all of those guys have been coaches, but at the same time, they have to have that open door too, to allow those parents to voice their opinions, because I do think that's healthy communication. But look, it's like everywhere else. We're going to get parents or those that are going to go to the athletic director to that next level that it might be. And that's just part of it.
Yeah,
I can say, Ken, I was the athletic director at Perry High School for 17 years, along with being the head coach over there. 98% of the parents that come in to see me is all over playing time. And every parent, a lot of the parents think that their son's going to go on and play a major college and be a pro player. And we all know that that's not true in the long run, but that's basically what it's about. So as an athletic director, when I was there, I always tried to make sure that I had the coaches' backs, because it's so important. And if they come to me, I would always say, you'll see the coach first before you go on to go see the superintendent, whatever. But that's basically what it's about. It's playing time. And every parent wants their kid to play, but you only play so many.
right. Now, you mentioned being they expect their kids to go off and play college baseball, and that's a very difficult thing to do. What type of role do you play as coaches with helping your guys get recruited, whether it's D3 all the way up to Division I?
I think early in my coaching career, and that transition, it's really transitioned since COVID a little different in my eyes. But before COVID, I thought we were even more heavily involved. I'm still heavily involved. I think I've signed 60 guys in 12 years. So I'm heavily involved in as much as they need. So we help them with, videos or, profiles, those type of things, reaching out to coaches on their behalf as much as we can. But it's really transitioned and since COVID, because the swing, the pendulum has gone so far into the YouTube world and into the all of the showcase world. So, it's really working hand in hand as much as you can with their summer coaches and making sure there's balance in there where they're not getting, too much work early for the showcase, because you got to get in front of them. You got to throw the ball. It's just how it's got to work. You got to swing it. You got to put those analytic numbers up. You like it or don't. That's just the world we're in right now. So we got to really talk balance with them and work alongside with their summer ball coaches or their travel coaches, those organizations, to really help them along in the process. And really, to be honest with you, I really lean more towards educating them and educating the parent on the different styles of what D3 and 2 means and the scholarship opportunities and what's a good fit for them, and really just kind of partner with them along on it more than leading them, where I think I was a little earlier in my coaching career, not to a negative side of it, but there's just more out there for them to use to their advantages. And we're seeing that, which is good. But I feel like I'm a partnering with the parent and them along in this process. So it's exciting. It's fun. I love helping him in that process as he did when he went through it. So, that's good stuff, man.
Well, Frank, let me ask you this. You went from the high school route, then you jumped into the college. What is the biggest thing that you see a player's lacking that comes from high school to college to help them get ready to be a college baseball player?
Well, a lot of it is preparation. You'd be surprised some of the preparation, some of the good high schools that have very, very good programs. It was very easy. I was at Furman University. It was Division I school in South Carolina, and we had kids from all over the South. At Worcester College, Division III, we have a lot of kids that came in from Ohio. And most of our better programs in the state of Ohio are well coached, and we just take it from there in the college ranks. There were some kids that tried to come in and they didn't make the team because they just didn't have the fundamentals. But majority of the time, like I said earlier in this podcast, the coaching's got so much better than it has 15, 20, 25 years ago. And the kids, and I think Bill does a great job of this right now. He gets our players the position at the level that we think they can play at. If he's a D3 player, a D2 player, we're not trying to push him to go to Ohio State or any Division I school. Play where you feel most comfortable. And that's where we're at right now. Right.
Let me ask you this. You touched on the travel aspect of the game. How you spoke how you work a little bit with the travel coaches to kind of get everybody on the same page. How do you do that? And if you could, to help a coach, whether it's here in Ohio or anywhere else that's listening, because travel baseball is huge, and not all travel coaches may work with the high school coach to do what's best for the player. And how do you handle that?
Well, let's back up, and we're going to talk travel baseball. We got to kind of go back to a little bit about our philosophy here. We call it homegrown. And in the process, we run and we operate 16 travel teams in Jackson baseball. So in our youth system, we have 1-8, 3 9s, 10s, 11s, 2 12s, 13 14s, 14 U's. We help train them. We have a full-time trainer on staff in our 10,000 square foot facility. We're training them. They're going around the country and they're playing. And we move it, but we really try. And it's probably 99% Jackson players. So from there, I'm building the relationships with the players and parents. Our assistant head coach, Dan Rodriguez, is the head of travel baseball for us. So we're providing an environment of growth and competitiveness. And that's really what we balance, for us. And then at some point, it might be at 8 years old, it might be at 12, it might be at 16, it might be, they're going to want to drink the Kool-Aid, as we say, and go out and play for that team or that showcase team or that, team that's traveling all over. And I think that's healthy. And we just want to kind of educate them in the process as best we can. I think in this region, I have a pretty good relationship. Again, every year you just gain more with those travel organizations. I think our tradition and our program help in what the alumni have done to build this program, I think also helps. So we're just here to help them, and I work along with them as best I can. If I'm talking to, insert name of that travel organization, because there's a lot now. There are all over the state, but we just try and get those guys in the best position for them to develop, and then we want to put them in a competitive environment. So those are really things we're balancing. It doesn't matter if they're 8, 12, 18, or I was having a meeting today with one of my alum about getting them into the proper level of college summer ball. It's the same thing. We're balancing, are you going to get enough innings in a competitive environment, balancing our overuse. So really those are the same conversations we're having if they're 8, 18, you know what I mean, or 22 in that process.
I wanted to run this by you and just get both of your opinions on it. What is the one thing that you think parents don't understand? And because I guess that from the social media stuff and the different things I get sent to me to my website, I get the impression a lot of it is parents. And what is the one thing that you wish parents understood about you that as a coach that maybe, they don't totally get?
What's one thing I wish they got more about me?
Yes.
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I would say this, that like every night I'm losing sleep over their son. Every night I'm losing sleep. Every time when I get up at 4:30 to go work out, I'm thinking about how to make Aiden a better hitter, how to make, Landon a better first baseman. You insert name there. My brain's constantly working to better their young men, put them in the best situation to be successful. That's really where I'm at holistically when it talks about the program. But then there's balance in there for me because he's a grandpa, right? And I got four kids. I have a freshman, sixth grader, fourth grader that are boys, and then I got a daughter in first grade. So at the same time, I'm trying to balance. I'm a parent in this craziness, just like they are too. So if I could say one thing is understand is that I'm out there constantly working for, again, you heard me say it, but I'm working for their son.
Right. And Frank, I read something online today where it was just a story, but someone made a comment on there. And my guess is they are a former player. And they talked about how you cared so much for them, even though that person wasn't your son. But I think that you must have had played a big role in a lot of student athletes' lives throughout your career.
Well, you know what? I look at it as a player. If you're part of our team, I don't care if you're the number one player in the team or you're the 27th player in the team or whatever it may be. Treat them all the same, show them that you care. That's, as Bill just mentioned, it's so important that the kid knows that you care. If you're yelling at the kid and trying to push him, you were doing it for his sake and to make him a better player. And that's what you have to do. And sometimes you have to put your arm around a young man and say, hey, listen, if he makes an error, you never want to yell at him. He feels bad as anybody on the field. If a kid has a bad day pitching, he comes off the field, hey, he doesn't need a lecture. He needs an arm and a little love and say, hey, it's going to be better next time. That's the way you treat him. You treat each kid, not your number one, you treat him the best, and your 27th, you don't. You try to treat him as much as you can, all of them in the same atmosphere. And, once in a while, too, I just listen to Bill talk. All of our kids, most of them have hitting coaches and pitching coaches and what have you. And a lot of times they get, as a younger age, that the coach outside is saying, hey, listen, you should make that varsity team. You're going to be a Division I player. You got pro material. And being honest with kids and bringing it back to realization, that's what it's all about. And you work with those. You have to work with that pitching coach and that hitting coach that some of our kids have, and a lot of them have. But you don't want to be a negative factor toward it, but you want to try to correlate what they're teaching and what you're teaching, and just to get our kids to believe in what we're doing. And I think we do a pretty good job of that.
With the Northeast Ohio area, I like to get this out there because I started out as an umpire before I became a coach. And I met with Dan McGinnis, who's in charge of all the umpires. I've had him on the podcast. And how is it in your area of the state, which Northeast Ohio basically, how is it with your umpire numbers, and is there anything we can do to increase that? Because I really feel like the less umpires we have, it's going to start affecting the freshmen and JV teams, and then that's going to eventually hit the numbers when it comes to the varsity.
Yeah, I'm seeing, being in this I'm seeing the handful of generational guys that were umpiring when I first started coaching as an assistant. This is, I think, in high school baseball, here 20-something, 21, 22 for me. And a lot of those guys are, they've been doing it. They're outstanding. There's just that gap, man, that gap for umpires. We're just running out of umpires in general and the quality of it. I'll make a shameless plug for my assistant coach, Dan Rodriguez. He actually started a class here, an academic class here, an officiating class. So it's a semester course. You asked, what are we doing? And we're trying to get in that mud and help stir it up the right direction. And Dan's done a fantastic job over the last 3-4 years of building up our sophomores, juniors, and seniors and getting them certified and getting them umpiring, refereeing, depending on what sport we're talking about. He's done a fantastic job of creating this course, this curriculum, and getting our student athletes, regardless of gender, regardless of sport, out there and getting experience and hopefully helping bring those numbers back up. Now, again, we won't see that for years to come in that aspect. But I think here at Jackson, Dan's out on the forefront doing a fantastic job of really trying to partner with that. Our baseball organization, our youth organization, our booster club, if you will, Jackson Diamond Club, every young man that goes through his class and wants to become an umpire, we're willing to donate and get you all the equipment to get you going. We're trying to do everything we can to help these guys along because it's an investment,
Yes.
It's an investment. That first investment in your 16 trying to buy $250 worth of gear, and you're like, wait a minute, I'm only making so much money. So we're willing to make that investment for them because we care that much about it, and we're trying to help and do our part if we can.
Well, that's fantastic. I think more schools around the country, if they could get involved in something like that, that would be great, not just for baseball, but for every sport, because all sports are being hit with umpire and officiating shortages. Let me ask one more question here, and then I want to hit you with a rapid fire. If you could make one change in high school baseball, what would that change be?
Ooh. One. I only get one change. Okay.
Here, let me give you an example. I've heard coaches say, I'd love to see a double first base.
I like that. I like that a lot. I think with that would probably be on my short list. Let's go there, mainly because we're having so much of the problems of the runner,
Yes.
Getting in the throwing lanes. I think that double first base would alleviate some of that issues. I'm just hoping that this whole transition of getting this hybrid thing out of high school, you know what I mean, and getting into the college, it's created more chaos than I think it's worth for me. I think just getting back to making it easier, stop worrying so much about the necklaces and the wrist things, those type of stuff.
Yep.
I mean, none of that has affected a game yet in 20-some years. It doesn't affect the college or pro level. Just the little things like that to keep the nuances and keep the rhythm of the game for me. Again, that would probably be on my short list of stuff.
Right.
Well, it's pretty much the same. Pretty much exactly. The game hasn't changed that much over the years as far as the rules and what have you. But it just go along. Little things like that are big, and it just the camaraderie between teams too, and the relationship between teams is important, and to preach a good sportsmanship, and not only to your players, but that carries over to your parents. And you go into some of the venues, and it's kind of ugly, and I don't know whose fault that may be, but we try to preach it here at Jackson and around the area that hey, we're going to live up to our expectations and do things right, and hopefully the parents say the same thing. So that's pretty much what Bill said right there too. That's pretty much what it is.
And if I could maybe wave the magic wand, it'd probably be at like have parents say less. How's that towards the umpires and officials? Yeah. Like, don't say anything at all.
Yeah.
Like, go through a game and and only say positives or just cheer. You're not allowed to negative. You're not allowed to complain about a call. You're not just cheer and go there and support your son or daughter. I don't care which sport it is, but I think if I could wave the magic wand, it'd be like just step away and it's okay if you get a bad call. It's going to happen.
Yes, they're human. Well, I love doing this. I've been adding this into the podcast, and it's my first time doing it with two guests. I call it a rapid fire, and Frank, since we'll go with age first here. I'll let you answer first, and then your son can answer second. Hate losing or love winning?
I love winning, and I learn from losing. I can't say hate because it's going to
Okay.
none of us are going to go undefeated all the time. I remember my first year, I was at Tussauds High School. I was just 23 years old as a head coach. We won 16 straight games. It was 16-0, and I thought, man, this is easy stuff. And then we lost that next game, and it was like I actually had parents coming at me. It was your fault we lost. And all of a sudden I woke up, so that's a big thing right there. That's one of the things.
Hate losing.
I don't like losing. I'm trying to be kind when I say that. I hate losing. It excuse my French, it sucks. But somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose. But hopefully we're on the plus side. That's the name of the game.
Well, everybody I've asked that question, I always respond with, I hate losing. So
be nice,
I'm with you on that one, Bill. Yep. Well, which do you enjoy more? Ending an inning with a double play or a successful hit and run?
I'll tell you what,
Frank.
I like the double play. I say I'm a pitching defensive guy. Really, really think that's so important. All the kids want to swing the bat, but I like a double play. If you ask, I like both situations. Ideal. I'd take either one in a heartbeat. But you asked me, so I'll take the double play.
Double play. I'll take it any day of the week.
There you go. You got one pitcher that you can use in Game 7 of the World Series, and you only need to get 3 outs. Who are you going to run out there? Mariano Rivera, Sandy Koufax, or Oral Hershiser?
Wow. Got me on this one. This is tough. Thought you were giving me an easy one. Wow. I'm going first just because. I'm going to take I'll probably go with I'll take the Bulldog when he was in his heater, when he was on that streak. 55 straight innings, where he was didn't give up a hit or a run or whatever it was. I'm taking the Bulldog.
I'll go with Rivera.
There you go.
I tell you, we can't go wrong with any of them. If we could have any one of those on the mound with 3 outs to go, I'd be happier than a pig in mud. Trust me. But it's, so it's, I don't think there's a wrong answer with either one of them, any of them.
All right, you're down to your final out. You got one batter to step into the box. Would you rather have Barry Bonds, Ted Williams, or Pete Rose?
Ooh.
And you need him to get on base.
Okay, can I ask the scenario? Because I'm a coach, my brain's moving. What's the scenario? Do I have runners on base? Do I need a home run? Do I need a base?
Runner on second, and it's tie game.
Runner on second, tie game. Let's see. They're going to walk Bonds. I'm going to take Ted Williams.
I'm going with Pete Rose.
You would go with Pete. You love Pete.
I like.
He loves Pete Rose. Loves him.
He's going to go up to hit. He's going to drive him in, and we're going to win the ball game.
There you go. All right, the final question. As a coach, do you love winning and it's just a straight blowout, or do you like that last at-bat walk-off guy?
Ooh. Well, either way, I think either way my hamburger's going to taste better because we won. But I'll take the walk-off just for the adrenaline rush and for the fans. Love those one-run games. I think the analytics side of it and the coaching side comes into play so much. So I'll probably be greedy there and say I'll take the walk-off.
I'll be greedy and say I'll take both, but I lean toward walk-off. But, hey, never argue with it. Sometimes you have a win, and it was an ugly win. You just didn't play well, but you managed to get one more than the other team. But I'll take either one of them.
Well, thanks again to head coach Bill Gamble at Massillon Jackson and his assistant coach and father, Frank Gamble. Guys, thanks for taking the time to be on the Athlete One podcast. I really appreciate it.
It was great, man. Thanks for having us.
Kenny, thanks for doing this. It just promotes baseball, and that's what it's all about. And you've been in it a long time. We've been in it a long, and this is great. So keep on doing what you're doing. Thank you.
Special thanks to Bill and Frank Gamble from Massillon Jackson Baseball. If you've enjoyed this episode of the Athlete One podcast, please be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. And thank you, the listener. As always, this episode of the Athlete One podcast is powered by the netting professionals, improving programs one facility at a time. Contact them today at 844-620-2707 or visit them online at www.nettingpros.com, or you can check them out at Netting Pros on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn for all their latest products and projects. Give us a follow at Athlete One Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Until next time.